Okay, I think we can make a start now. Um, Thank you very much for joining our research webinar today, focused on our Chamber Spotlight Guides. So it's fantastic to have you all on the call. I want to take the next 10 minutes or so to talk a bit about what Spotlight is, its benefits, and how you can participate in our research. So if you have any questions during the session, feel free to add them to the Q&A section. I'll aim to leave a couple of minutes at the end to get through as many as possible. Any questions that we don't get to will be included in an FAQ document that I will send to you all after. So if we could have the next slide, please. Let us go back to the beginning. So Chambers Spotlight launched our first guide in 2023, Spotlight Texas, with the aim of recognizing the legal talent on offer at smaller to mid-sized firms in a bespoke ranking guide. So if you're already familiar, Chambers has historically been associated with recognizing the largest and highest profile law firms in the US market. Over the years, we've sort of uncovered numerous small law firms that handle excellent work that don't always get the chance to participate in our research process. So to continue to accurately reflect the market, we've introduced Spotlight rankings, which aim to fill that gap and highlight the very best of boutiques and smaller firms, while allowing them to sort of participate in a research process that's a better fit for the way that these firms work. So Chamber Spotlight is exclusively for small to mid-sized firms handling sophisticated work in their market and offers them third-party accreditation and recognition in a dedicated guide. So since its launch in 2023, Spotlight has now expanded to 10 states. So we've got California, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Texas. And this April, which is incredibly exciting, we're adding DC Metro to the research schedule to highlight the very best legal talent on offer in the area at sort of the small law firm level. So Spotlight continues to grow, but our aim sort of remains the same, and that's to champion the leading small firms across the USA. So if we could have the next slide. So you might ask, why did we introduce Spotlight? So Chambers identified a demand from in-house counsel who were asking for a trusted independent source for finding the best small to mid-sized firms who can offer personalized service, sort of flexible pricing and specific expertise. So Spotlight sort of aims to build a bridge between the ranked firms and GCs who are seeking more choice when selecting legal services. And we also sort of provide the legal profession with a curated list of high quality law firms able to take on referral and co-counsel roles. So further, we've got recent research from Chambers, and that's drawn from around 74,000 responses to interviews and surveys, and an analysis of 9,000 clients on the performance of their law firms. And that reveals, as you can sort of see on the screen before you, that cost, deep expertise, and values are the sort of key drivers influencing legal spend. So just to highlight a couple of sort of key insights from the report then, we can see that 55% of clients expect their legal spend to increase over the next year. So why? Well, I'm sure you all already know why, but obviously it being economic uncertainty, sort of regulatory upheaval and soaring legal bills. And on that sort of latter point, recent data from Wells Fargo shows that in the first half of 2025, billing rates grew by 9.2%, and that was largely driven by overhead costs. If we look at that Fortune 100 quote from that insurance company there, you can see that value, innovation, and business partnership from law firms is becoming central to counsel selection. And just picking sort of a third point that we're sort of seeing, and that's that purchasing behaviors are shifting. And you can see that from that Fortune 500 fintech company quote, which says that they're seriously evaluating whether it makes sense to use large white shoe law firms, even for sophisticated matters. The value we get rarely justifies the spend. So what we're obviously seeing is that as rack rate continues to stir discontent, clients are increasingly reviewing legal spend and are shifting both commoditized and complex work from elite law firms. So in this evolving landscape, small to mid-sized law firms are sort of increasingly in the spotlight, if you would like, and are well positioned to respond to client needs. So if we could have the next slide. turning back to Chambers Spotlight then, what type of small to sort of mid-sized law firm qualifies for consideration by the research team? So you can see there the sort of criteria, but just to sort of read it out, we typically look at firms having less than 75 attorneys. We rank firms across numerous practice areas, and you can see those on your screen there, where we exclude sort of family and criminal work, with the notable exception of white-collar crime. It's important to note that this isn't an exhaustive list, and we're always keen to open up new areas to ensure that we accurately reflect the market. The firm must also have an office in one of our target states, and the firm cannot have a Chambers department ranking any other guide, but the firm can have individuals ranked in another guide. So how do we go about selecting the firms? So the Spotlight research process differs from how other Chambers guides are researched. We recognize that small law firms often don't have the marketing departments needed to prepare the submissions typically required in other Chambers guides. So for Spotlight, the process instead involves a 45-minute interview held by one of our specialist Spotlight research team with a key member of the practice in order to be considered for a ranking. So following the interview, firms optionally have the opportunity to send additional supporting information in writing. It's very it's important to note at this point that we sort of require annual interviews with firms who achieve a ranking to maintain an up-to-date understanding of their work and to ensure the continued accuracy of our guides. The research remains rigorous. Our team reviews substantial data from across the market and conducts a detailed desk research, all of which is sort of reviewed as part of our assessment. And the Spotlight team has the benefit of sort of 20 years of Chambers research into the US legal market, and it takes a comparative view in all of its decision making. So in terms of what to expect from an interview, so we typically conduct a discussion with partners to explore your key practice areas, your clients, and to understand how your firm differentiates itself in the market. The team will also invite you to provide unattributable feedback on other firms active in the space, helping us to sort of accurately reflect the market and capture your insights on recent trends. Let's touch on sort of how to put your best foot forward in the interview. So we encourage you to come prepared to highlight your top practice areas with around 4 or 5 examples of recent work that the firm's handled in the last 12 months. And providing those recent examples ensures that we sort of have that up-to-date view of the practice. Adding as much detail as possible, including client names where you're able to share them, really helps the team sort of build a clearer and accurate understanding of the firm's practices. Everything you do share in the interview is entirely confidential. We do not publish any information from the conversation and only use the interview for ranking purposes. So if we can have the next slide. After the interview then, it's over to the research team to assess the firms for a Spotlight ranking. So as you can see on your screen there, we typically identify and recognize the top firms by state that typically exhibit these traits year on year. So we're looking for firms to handle complex work comparative to the ranked firms in the practice area. We're looking for where firms punch above their weight, working with sophisticated opposing counsel, if they're representing key clients in local, regional, national, and international markets, have particular experience, presence in specific industries and sectors, and a sort of a bench of attorneys with considerable expertise and experience. If I could have the next slide. So I talked a bit about the interview and what you can expect and what sort of firms qualify for consideration. You might be listening in being like, why should I participate? And what's the benefit to me? Well, I shall tell you. A recent sort of study by Chambers of sort of hundreds of law firms across the US found that the top priorities for 2026 are, you can see those on the screen, client satisfaction, employee retention, and client acquisition. So the same study showed that firms that use rankings as business tools are better positioned to address these 3 priorities. So we asked law firms how rankings impact their business and how they use rankings in practice. And you can see those graphs before you, and I just want to pick out 2 sort of stats here. So 33% of firms report that rankings primarily impact reputation and trust building, and a sort of staggering 85% use rankings to attract new clients and business opportunities. So if we could have the next slide, I want to just show you the in-house counsel perspective now. So this graph is from another Chambers report, drawing on survey responses from over 100 in-house counsel across the US. So you can, again, I'll just pick up some stats, but we've got that 76% US in-house counsel primarily using rankings to find experts in certain practice areas. We've got 70% using them to find new legal representation. Those two stats obviously suggest that rankings are key when sourcing specialist support. Geographic expertise, you can see there, is around 57% is a major factor, indicating that in-house counsel value rankings when expanding into new jurisdictions or sort of managing multi-state matters. If I could have the next slide. I also just wanted to share with you what our Spotlight rank firms say that the ranking helps them with. So I have 4 quotes there on the screen. Looking at the first one, obviously we have our firms telling us that it helps them establish immediate credibility alongside larger firms, describing the Spotlight ranking as an equalizer when they're competing for new business. We have another firm telling us it helps them cost effectively market their firm, describing the Spotlight ranking as their main marketing effort. We've got reputation and trust building, adding that additional sort of layer of credibility and legitimacy. And Spotlight rank firms telling us that they gain referrals from large law firms or peers. Okay, if I could have the next slide. So you sort of heard from the law firms, you've heard from in-house counsel, you've heard from the Spotlight rank firms as well. So now all that there is to say is that participation in the research and achieving a ranking is completely free. Rank firms may choose to purchase additional features to maximize their profile, but that is completely voluntary. Research is currently underway for Chambers Spotlight 2027. You can view the schedule online at chambers.com and also before you here on the screen to discover which states we're researching and when and how you can sort of get involved. If you're sort of interested in participating or you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch at the email address on the screen there, or you're welcome to email me directly. Yes, I very much appreciate you all taking the time to listen to me. I think we'll turn it over to, we've got a tiny bit of time to get to some questions. Any questions that we don't get to will, of course, be answered in an FAQ document and emailed to you all. But thank you again for joining. It's wonderful to have you on the call. I hope to connect with some of you after. I think I'm going to turn to Aisha now, who might have some questions.
Thank you, Kypriana. Appreciate you walking us through the details of Chamber Spotlight. There are a few questions coming in, and I know we are close to our time. So let me just ask you a couple that have come in. One is, will we receive the slides after the presentation? Yes, we will send out the slides and a recording for anyone who is interested in a follow-up email. A second question, Kypriana, is this only for US firms, or are other firms like LATAM included?
So currently Chambers Spotlight only focuses on the US. There are separate Spotlight rankings, but I believe the process is slightly different for other guides. If you do have any questions regarding other guides, I can connect you with the relevant sort of head of that particular section, and we'll get more information for you. But currently this is just Chambers Spotlight for US.
Wonderful. A couple coming in asking about next steps. So eager to get involved. So what are the next steps in areas that are currently being researched? How do I sign up? Who is the right person to reach out? And so if you can share a little bit more detail there.
Of course. Yeah, wonderful question. In terms of next steps, we'll obviously email you all the slides so you can refer back to them, and you can have the Chambers research schedule there to sort of refer to. Please do get in touch at spotlight@chambers.com if you are interested in setting up a call with the research team, or you're more than welcome to email me directly, and I will include my email in a sort of follow-up when we send through the presentation. So it'd be wonderful to hear from you. We're keen to learn about your practices. So please do get in touch that way.
Wonderful. And one last one, Kypriana. About the DC metro area, which is very exciting. There is a question about a boutique firm in Northern Virginia, and will they be included as part of the definition of DC metro?
Yes, yes, you will. Please do get in touch, whoever you are. I want to learn about the practice. Yes, indeed.
Indeed. And final one is any advice on preparing for the interview questions?
Yes. This is a great question. In terms of advice, what I would encourage you to do is have a think of 4 or 5 work highlights. Have a think of the practice areas you first of all want to put forward to the research team. Then have a think of the work highlights you want to put forward that represent that particular practice area. We're looking for work highlights handled in the last 12 months. If you're able to share client names, sorry, coming prepared to share those names, coming prepared to share who your sort of competitors are and how you differentiate yourself in the market, how you go about sort of winning your work is key. So having a think about some of those sort of questions. Again, you're welcome to email me separately, and I'm happy to send across the questions we typically ask ahead of the interview to help you prepare.
Well, thank you, Kypriana. That is it for the questions, and thank you to everyone who joined us today.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it, and I hope to connect with some of you after this call. Thank you. Thanks for your time.